It's a crossover Thursday on today's Locked On Giants podcast. Your boy Q, host of the LockedOn Raiders podcast, joins me to break down the Las Vegas Raiders who invade the Meadowlands this Sunday. That's coming up next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day, or if you're watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Really appreciate you tuning in. And as mentioned, we have a crossover Thursday for you today. Your boy Q, or our boy Q, the host of the Locked On Raiders podcast, is going to join me in just a bit. And we are going to break down the Giants-Raiders game that is coming up this Sunday at MetLife Stadium. Q's got all the lowdown on the Las Vegas Raiders, and he's going to share all that with us. And of course, as a reminder, make sure you check out the Locked On Raiders podcast on Thursday. They're just on audio right now. They're not on YouTube yet, but I gave Q some of the details on the Giants, what to expect and whatnot. And just also as a reminder, we taped that show on Tuesday. So at the time, certain things we didn't know, but I'm going to try and fill you in on some of the stuff that we didn't know at the time and from a Giants perspective. So let's get into that. Giants had a very, very crazy day Wednesday with a COVID scare. And just to recap the story, the Giants had 13 people in the organizations, players, coaches, staff, test positive for COVID-19. The folks were retested, and it turned out that 12 of them actually turned out to be a false positive. Running backs coach Burton Burns, however, unfortunately tested positive twice. And best wishes to Coach Burns. He's 69 years old, a real sweetheart of a man. Not somebody who you want to get sick. You don't want to see anybody get sick with the COVID virus, but especially folks who, are more mature in age and whatnot. You don't want to see them have that happen. But anyway, in Coach Burns' absence, head coach Joe Judge said that Jody Wright and Freddie Kitchens will coach the running backs this weekend because Coach Burns will not be available. From a player perspective, there were a few players that came into the COVID protocol. Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney, those are the two big names. Matt Skura was also in the protocol for Wednesday, but at the end of the day, when the Giants filed their transaction report, Skura was not placed on the reserve COVID list. Barkley and Xavier McKinney were. So that could mean that, Barkley we know tested positive. That was reported by the NFL Network. We don't know if McKinney tested positive or just had extensive contact with somebody who tested positive. So I don't want to speculate on that, but usually if you land up on that reserve COVID list, it means you either tested positive or you came in close contact with somebody who, who did test positive. So here's hoping that both Barkley and McKinney can get back as quickly as possible. Now, let's also get you caught up on some of the injury updates. This week, it's early. The Giants had a walkthrough practice on Wednesday. That said, the injury list was projected. But my firm belief is Kadarius Toney, who was listed with the thumb injury, I think he plays. All right. He got hurt last Monday, or this past Monday, I should say. Got his thumb looked at, came back in the game. I have no reason to think he won't play on Sunday. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. Sterling Shepard, it's been reported that he will miss a few weeks. So I don't anticipate seeing him. Kadarius Toney, Kenny Golladay, who is still dealing with the knee injury. I don't expect to see him. And of course, Barkley, now that he's on the reserve COVID list, he's not going to play either. But, that ankle is still something he's dealing with. So had he not landed on the reserve COVID list, I would have been very surprised if we had seen Saquon Barkley this weekend. So basically, the plan is with the bye week coming up after this game, it's extra time for all these guys to heal and get better for a period in their schedule, which will start to lighten up a little bit once they get past the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who's the first team they face coming out of the bye. So the idea is to get these guys, healthy as possible, get them as many of them back as they can after the bye week. We'll see if, Andrew Thomas is ready to go. We'll see if Ellerson Smith, who's still on, his window opened up. We'll see if he's ready to go. So the injury situation, I think, is going to get better. It's not going to get better in time for this game against the Raiders, but I think it's going to get better once they come out of the bye week. I think you'll see some guys coming back. At least that's the impression I get as of this recording done on a Wednesday evening. So that's where we kind of stand with regards to the injury update. And like I said, coming up, we're going to have the crossover show with your boy Q, host of the LockedOn Raiders podcast. Again, that show was taped Tuesday. So you're going to hear us talk about the Henry Ruggs situation, which at the time it was just breaking and we were still getting details about it. So since that was recorded, obviously the Raiders released Henry Ruggs. He's no longer on the team. He's got a big uphill battle ahead of him, given the unfortunate circumstances that he landed up in. So we talk about that. We talk about the turnover with John Gruden to Rich Bassia. So a lot of stuff coming up, and Q breaks it all down for us really well. So that's coming up in just a bit. Just before we get to that, a reminder, we are going to do our mailbag on Friday. So please, if you have a question, get it to me by Thursday night around 6:00 Eastern. So this way I have it and I will be able to include it in the mailbag. Now, how do you get it to me? Glad you asked. You can email it to me. The email address is in the show notes. It's lockedongiantspodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet it to me. My Twitter handle, you can see that's below. Just make sure you tag it Ask P-Train so I can find it. I have a column set up for all my Ask P-Train questions that come in. So make sure you do that. If you're watching on YouTube, I know some of you sometimes put questions in the comment sections. If it's for the mailbag, it's better if you just email it to me or tweet it to me, because I do look at the comments, but after a couple of days, I kind of move on. So I might miss something and I really don't want to miss your questions. So please either email it to me or tweet it to me, and I will make sure I include it in Friday's mailbag. All right, Giant fans, this episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you in part by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than a place to get tasty, affordable food. And it's a place where every Saturday morning you can find me pulling up to get my weekly egg and cheese biscuit sandwich for breakfast, as well as a hot McCafe drink before I start my morning of weekly errands. So head to your local McDonald's today to reconnect, refuel, and recharge. McDonald's, I'm loving it. Hey, Giant fans, if you do a lot of driving like I do, then you need to know about a fantastic new app called Get Upside. When you open an account on Get Upside, you can get 25 cents per gallon back every time you fill up at the pump. Get Upside makes it easy to save on your gasoline, and they give you multiple cash out options, such as direct payment to your bank account, PayPal, Amazon gift cards, and more anytime you want to cash out. Open an account today and use our special promo code Touchdown to get a bonus 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. Download the free Get Upside app, use our special promo code Touchdown, and when you sign up for your account, you can start saving every time your car or truck needs a fill up. Again, that's the Get Upside app, available in the iTunes App Store or on Google Play, and that promo code again is Touchdown. And welcome back, Giant fans, to the crossover section of the LockedOn Giants podcast. I am Patricia Traina, and joining me today is your boy Q. He is the host of the LockedOn Raiders podcast, and he's coming to us from Las Vegas, where he is now a big shot over on Las Vegas Sports Radio. Q, my man, always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. It's great to be on. It should be fun. It's great to be here in Las Vegas, and it's always good to be on with you talking some football, G-Men and the Raiders this week.
Absolutely. And Raiders are coming off of a bye week. So let's start there. You know, it's a bye week. Based on what you know and what you've been following, what changes have they made? Are they just kind of keeping the status quo? I know they've got some things going on, which we'll talk about coming up in just a little bit, you know, with the new head coach. We'll talk about Henry Ruggs, but just overall, what's the sense coming off the bye week?
Well, you know, it was until everything shook out with Henry Ruggs that we'll get to in a little bit. But I mean, it was status quo. It was business as usual. Everything was looking pretty good for the Silver and Black, you know, sitting in first place in the AFC West after the Chargers lost to the Patriots, a very surprising loss. As a matter of fact, I thought the Chargers were a lot better team. You saw up close and personal what the Chiefs looked like on Monday Night Football against the G-Men, a game that they should have lost, but I guess the Giants were just the worst of the worst teams. You know, I mean, they just were, and that's not trying to be disrespectful. They lost that game. They should have won that game, and they just found a way to lose it. But the division is right there for the taking for the Raiders, so everything is good, but there's a lot of questions, obviously, now with, statuses as far as wide receivers go and everything going on legally with Henry Ruggs. But besides that, man, the team is looking pretty good and feeling pretty good, but they got to go out there and handle it on the field.
You know, since we're on the topic of Henry Ruggs, let's stay there. Now, As we record this, the news actually just broke earlier today. What can you tell us about that situation? And I'm assuming, obviously, that Ruggs probably will not be available this weekend when the Raiders come to town. But what are you hearing about that?
Well, it was really bad. It was an accident early in the morning on Tuesday morning in Las Vegas, about 3-something a.m. And we all know that, what do they say, nothing ever positive happens after midnight. Well, this is the truth. That's what happens. Apparently, he was at a Topgolf the night before, having a good time. And it sounds like he got into an accident that could have been involving alcohol. It's not 100% guaranteed yet, but the officers on site said he was impaired. They're charging him with DUI that results in death, and that's very bad. There was a death in the injury, and it had to do with the young lady that was involved in the accident, not Henry Ruggs or his girlfriend in his car, but in the other car. So just terrible news, really, and it's just a big gray cloud that's hanging over the Raiders organization, where it's not any of their fault in the locker room, obviously, but it's their brother. You know how it is. You've been around the game long enough. I mean, that nobody wants to see anybody in that locker room having to deal with any issue. And this is something now that Henry Ruggs is going to have to deal with off the field. And the Raiders are going to have to find a way to kind of remove themselves from that situation. But yeah, just bad news for Henry Ruggs. He's going to court, and who knows what's going to happen. But currently in jail, no bail, and we'll see what happens next.
And before we go any further, obviously, condolences to the victims in that car crash. Absolutely devastating and horrible news, and a reminder, you know, to just be careful after midnight, at any time of day, really, because it can happen anyway. But, you know, just staying with that storyline, though. I mean, that is a significant story, and, you know, a potential distraction in the locker room. I'm sure, you know, this week, and again, as we record this, the week hasn't started yet officially for all the teams, but I'm sure the topic will come up. The coaches will be asked about it. The players might be asked about it. I don't think the Raiders, you know, well, I guess they have had a big storyline, you know, with the resignation of John Gruden and whatnot. But I mean, how much more can they take as far as these blockbuster type of stories and the potential distractions?
Right. That's the big question. You know, that's what I've been asking myself as well. I mean, they've been able to find a way to overcome the Gruden situation, and Rich Bisaccia has done a good job as the interim head coach. He's 2-0 right now. Team looks like they've rallied behind him, but man, I mean, you're right. I mean, that's another big gray cloud over the heads of the team. And again, it's no fault of their own. Neither one of these situations, if you think about it, are their faults, you know, but they're they're going to be the ones that have to fall on the sword and really have to deal with it. And so it's a tough situation, and it's really difficult, especially knowing how much Henry Ruggs means to that locker room, not even on the field, just as a person, as a man. I mean, that's the one thing I've noticed about this team. And you've been around teams that have won championships, and I'm not saying the Raiders are going to win one, but there's a special bond that players have and a special bond that teams have. And you could tell when they really genuinely love each other, it kind of helps push them a little bit further. That's the kind of team I feel like this is. I feel like this is a team that they all really genuinely have each other's back, and this is going to be a big blow. So I don't know how they're going to rebound from it. Only time will tell. Their first test will be Sunday against the Giants, so I guess we'll find out together. But yeah, it's a tough one, man. It really is. It's a very tough pill to swallow for the organization and obviously for Henry Ruggs.
All right, now you mentioned the new head coach, Rich Vasquez. What has he brought to the table? How are things different under him? And has he calmed the whole situation down in that wake of that post-Gruden explosive story?
Yeah, it feels like he has, and it's crazy because, I mean, he's been around the league for so long as a special teams coach. He's been around for a very long time. Apparently, after I did some digging, he's wanted to be a head coach for a long time, but never has had that opportunity. When he was in Dallas, he was an assistant head coach. When he was with the Raiders before, Gruden resigned, he was the assistant head coach, and now he's the interim head coach. And every player that we've talked to so far has said how much they want to run through a wall for him, how much he's a leader of men, how much they respect him. And even though they didn't want to lose Gruden as their head coach, they said, hey, this is our guy. Rich Bisaccia is our guy. And right now the proof is in the pudding. I mean, they're 2-0, and they've played probably their two best games of the season under him so far. So I don't know what button he's pushing to be so successful. I know he's letting his offensive coordinator, Greg Olson, be the OC. I know he's letting Gus Bradley, the defensive coordinator, be the DC, and he's just staying in his lane, being the special teams coordinator and the CEO instead of, kind of overseeing everything. Maybe that has to do with it a little bit. He's a calm voice. He's not the rah-rah Chucky type guy. He's not screaming and yelling at the officials. He's just a different dude. And right now the team is reacting really well to him. So we'll see what he can do with this one. He's got to work some more magic and see if he can kind of keep these guys together. But it should be interesting. But yeah, so far, 2 thumbs up for what Rich Bisaccia has been able to bring to the table.
All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up in just a moment. But let me tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline is back better than ever before, offering a new web interface for the start of the basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to their updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use our promo code LOCKEDON. From basketball, football, baseball postseason, NHL, boxing, UFC, right down to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers BetOnline has to offer. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, now let's turn to some bigger picture type of questions. And I'm going to start off by asking you, we spoke back in the summer about expectations, what we thought the Raiders might be, but what has been the biggest surprise through the first 7 or so weeks of the season for the Raiders?
I think it's the success of the defense. I think everyone believed that they were going to have a really good offense coming into this year. They've been playing really good offensively. Derek Carr has been doing really well, even though a lot of people don't give him credit, but he's got weapons offensively. So I thought, hey, the offense is going to cruise right along, but the defense has been the Achilles heel for so long for that team. And Gus Bradley's come in, and really these guys figured it out fast. I thought they'd be better because Gus Bradley's a really good defensive coordinator. He's been around the league for a long time. I thought he'd figure it out and get these guys right. But to be 7 weeks in, and I promise you the defense has affected every single game, and they've been a factor every week. It blows my mind. I can't believe that they're as good as they are, as quick as they are. And it was smart. They brought in some veterans like Casey Hayward, Unique Ngakoue, KJ Wright, Denzel Perryman, guys that have worked for Gus Bradley before, and they know what he wants. They know the scheme, and so they kind of made that transition for the rest of the team a lot better, and that really has been the difference in this season. I mean, I don't think the Raiders are 5-2 if they had the defense they had last year. I think they're sitting there maybe at 2-5. I really honestly think that they lose a lot of these games that they've been winning if their defense isn't what it is. So I would say so far, and people ask me all the time, who's the MVP of the season so far? I'd say Gus Bradley and that defensive coaching staff, because they've done a really good job with a unit that was terrible just a year ago.
What players are you looking to break out that just haven't done so just yet?
Oh man, that's a good question. Honestly, Josh Jacobs, running back Josh Jacobs. I don't know if he's going to be banged up or available for this game. He scored a touchdown a week ago when they played Philadelphia. Then they went on their bye. But after scoring that touchdown, he went out with a what is called a chest injury. Even though he went to Instagram and said his chest is not injured, he's been banged up quite a bit this season, and he's a really good running back. But he just hasn't had that consistent game that he normally has. And so maybe Josh Jacobs would be the guy I say needs to really break out and have that big time game. And now, as we mentioned a couple times with the loss of Henry Ruggs, I mean, the run game is probably going to be relied on a little bit more than it has in previous years. Kenyon Drake's done a good job the last couple of weeks, but I think Josh Jacobs is going to be his time to step up and have a really big game.
What concerns do you still have that linger from maybe going back to the last time we spoke in the summer?
I think the offensive line still needs to come together. They're still young. They're trying to figure things out. Alex Leatherwood was drafted to be the right tackle of the future. He's now the guard. They kicked him inside the guard already, and Brandon Parker has done a good job at the right tackle position, but he's still Brandon Parker. And for anyone who's covered the Raiders or followed the Raiders for a while, they know Brandon Parker is pretty suspect at that tackle position, but he's done a good job. To his credit, he's done a good job the last few weeks that he's been out there. So maybe he's figured it out. But I feel like there's always that possibility that a good pass rusher could really destroy the Raiders' game plan. And so I think that offensive line just needs to continue to gel. Richie Incognito, he's a wily veteran. He hasn't played a down yet this year, so that's a problem. He was a piece that they were expecting to play, and he hasn't been there. So I think it's just really that offensive line's got to continue to get better and better and better. I think you're only going to go as far as the trenches are going to take you. And if that offensive line can't continue to grow, then there's a ceiling that the Raiders will hit, and it could happen sooner rather than later. But I think that they're on the right path. They just got to continue to get better.
Derek Carr has been having a pretty good year, I think. I don't know if this is one of his best years, but, he's been having a strong year. What's been the difference for him?
I don't think he cares. You know what I mean? I don't think he cares as much anymore. I think he knows who he is, and he's going to go out there and prove who he is, and he's just going to go out there and play, and he's not going to try to prove everybody that may be the naysayers, prove them wrong. He's just going to go out there and play his game. I think that could be the difference because he's been getting better. Each year under Gruden, he was getting better. Last year, I thought he played well, and then it's just his demeanor and the way he kind of acted even in training camp this year. It was just like, hey, man, I don't have anything to prove anymore. I know who I am. I'm comfortable in my own skin. I think it's just a matter of just becoming comfortable in his own skin with who he is and not going out there to try to prove a point anymore. He's just letting it rip. He believes in the guys around him. I mentioned the love that they have in the locker room. That's one thing that they have talked about till they are blue in the face, that they really do love each other as a team. And so I think he believes in these guys. He trusts them. Zay Jones, Brian Edwards, Henry Ruggs before this issue, Hunter Renfrow, obviously. Those got Darren Waller, of course. He's got so many guys that he really, believes in on that team. He's just going out there and letting it rip and letting it be known that, hey, if you put it on my shoulders, I can get it done. And there's been conversation about, was Gruden holding them back? Did Bisaccia and Greg Olsen, have they unleashed him or what? I just think he's just out there doing his thing. I just honestly don't think he cares. And I don't mean that in a bad way, like he doesn't care what happens. He just ain't worried about what people are like myself are saying. He's going out there and balling. That's all he's doing.
Now, when you look at this upcoming game between the Giants and the Raiders, what do you view as the X factor of this game?
Well, I think that the Raiders, honestly, I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the Raiders should win this game. I don't think that the Giants, based off of what I've been seeing from them and saw Monday night, I just don't think that they're a very good team right now. But with that being said, the Raiders have proven that they don't stay focused and that they went to New York a year ago and just about lost to the Jets. If it wasn't for a last-second play to Henry Ruggs, they win the game. But I feel like they might be reading the headlines. They might be hearing the headlines. They might be hearing some of the praise about, oh man, they're in first place. They're in second in the AFC. They're starting to read the headlines and drink the Kool-Aid. That would be my only concern is, like, are they going to fall for that? Or are they going to stay laser focused and know that any given day, any team could just go out and beat a team like the Giants did to the Panthers? They went out there and whooped the Panthers. That was one of those situations like, hey, this could happen to you. The Jets just beat the Bengals the other day. Like, it was nothing. These things could happen. So I I want to make sure, especially coming off of the bye, that the team is laser focused, locked in. They're not worried about these off-field distractions, which are major, And so is that going to be a factor? Who knows? But I just think it's all about concentration, focus on the task at hand, and making sure they go and handle their business. And, oh, by the way, they have a home game with the Kansas City Chiefs coming up next week. Don't look ahead. You look ahead, you're going to be looking at an L. Simple as that.
All right. Now, I'm going to ask you two last questions.
Okay.
Number one, which matchup concerns you most about this game? And then give me your prediction.
Oh, man, that's a good question. The matchup that concerns me the most about this, I would probably say that Giants defensive line. The Giants defense in general looks good. From what I've seen, they look good. They look like they're getting after, the quarterback. They made life very difficult on Patrick Mahomes, making him run around. And of course, they forced him into some bad passes and a couple turnovers and one turnover that probably could have sealed the deal if it had been had been not a penalty called on it. But I would just say that defensive chess match, especially with the defensive line, Leonard Williams, I know he's a dog. He's going to want to get after the Raiders. It's something I think he takes personal, that matchup. So I would just say the Giants defensive line going up against that potentially raw Raiders offensive line. Can they hold up at the point of attack? Because if they can, I feel like the Raiders can have a good day offensively. But if they can't, and Derek Carr is running for his life, he's not a sprinter. He's not Daniel Jones as far as athleticism. So he's not going to be a guy that's going to escape trouble. So, I think it's all about the trenches, the defensive line of the G-men going up against that Raiders offensive line.
All right. And what's your prediction?
Oh, man.
How bad do you think the Giants are going to lose?
Honestly, I do think the Giants lose the game. I just do. But I think that I'll say 24-17. Let's put it 24-17. I think the Raiders get them, they get on top of them, score a couple, maybe a turnover or two, by the G-man. Again, that Raiders defense is what really has impressed me. So that's why I think that they get the victory. But again, it's coming off a bye. They're traveling to the East Coast, early kickoff. There's a lot of things not to like about this matchup, but I think ultimately this team is just a better team than who the Giants are this year. But you got to go out there and do it on paper. Don't listen to me. Go out there and do it on the field. You can't do it on paper. So they got to go out there and do it themselves.
All right. Sunday, MetLife Stadium, the Las Vegas Raiders come to town. The Giants still reeling, look to right the ship before their bye week. It hopefully will be a good one. Hopefully the Giants will give their fans something to cheer about. Q, always appreciate you coming on. You can check them out on the LockedOn Raiders podcast, everybody. Make sure you check out the rest of our shows. We've got so many shows here on the LockedOn Podcast Network, LockedOn NFL, LockedOn Bets, the draft show starting up. You name it, we probably have it. We've got every sport covered. Yep. Thank you so much for making the LockedOn Giants podcast your first listen of the day. For Q, your boy Q, and my boy Q, this is Patricia Traina. We will talk to you again tomorrow, Giant fans.